The wrestling world just witnessed something that nobody saw coming, and the shockwaves are still being felt across every corner of the industry. Jacob Fatu, the powerhouse who has been dominating everything in his path, found himself on the receiving end of an attack that has left fans scrambling for answers and theories running wild across social media. Before we dive into every detail of what went down, make sure you hit that subscribe button because you won't want to miss any updates on this rapidly developing situation. The attack happened during what was supposed to be a routine segment on Friday Night SmackDown. Fatu had just finished destroying his opponent in a match that lasted barely 5 minutes. The Samoan werewolf was standing tall in the ring, his music blaring through the arena as fans were still processing the absolute demolition they had just witnessed. Everything seemed normal, just another day of Fatu proving why he's considered one of the most dangerous men in professional wrestling today. But what came next turned the entire arena upside down. The lights suddenly cut out. The arena plunged into complete darkness and the crowd's reaction shifted from celebration to confusion in an instant. When the lights came back on just seconds later, there were 3 masked figures in the ring surrounding Fatu. The crowd erupted, but not in the way anyone expected. These weren't just random attackers or hired goons. The way they moved, the coordination they displayed, everything about their presence screamed professional and calculated. Fatu immediately went into fight mode because that's what he does. He charged at the first attacker with the kind of intensity that has made him a legend. He connected with a super kick that would have dropped most men, but this attacker barely stumbled. The second masked figure caught Fatu from behind with a chop block that took out his legs. Before anyone could process what was happening, the third attacker delivered a running knee strike that caught Fatu square in the face. The sound echoed through the arena and you could hear the collective gasp from thousands of fans. But Fatu is not someone who goes down easy. He fought back with everything he had, throwing heavy hands and connecting with strikes that would have ended most fights. He managed to toss one of the attackers over the top rope and the impact was brutal. The problem was that these 3 worked like a well-oiled machine. Every time Fatu would gain an advantage against one, the other 2 would swarm him. They weren't there to make a statement, they were there to take him out. The assault continued with a level of brutality that made even seasoned wrestling fans uncomfortable. One of the masked figures pulled out a steel chain from under the ring. The glint of the metal under the arena lights sent the crowd into a frenzy. Security tried to rush the ring, but the attackers had this plan down to the second. They had blocked the entrance ramp with equipment and the security team couldn't get there fast enough. Fatu took a chain-assisted clothesline that flipped him inside out. His body crashed to the mat with a sickening thud. The Bloodline members who should have been there to help were conspicuously absent. Solo Sikoa was scheduled for a backstage segment. Jimmy USO was dealing with his own storyline on the other side of the arena. The timing of this attack was too perfect to be coincidental. Someone knew exactly when Fatu would be most vulnerable and they executed their plan with surgical precision. This wasn't some spontaneous act of violence. This was a targeted hit. One of the attackers climbed to the top rope while the other 2 held Fatu in position. The crowd was screaming for someone, anyone, to come help. The masked figure launched himself off the top rope with a frog splash that drove all the air out of Fatu's lungs. The impact was devastating. Fatu's body convulsed on impact and for a terrifying moment, it looked like he might be seriously injured. Medical staff finally managed to breach the barricade the attackers had created, but by then the damage was done. The 3 masked figures stood over Fatu's fallen body and did something that sent chills through everyone watching. They each removed their masks in perfect synchronization. The reveal caused the arena to explode. These weren't unknown wrestlers trying to make a name for themselves. These were established stars from another promotion, names that fans had been begging to see in this company for years. The shock was absolute. Social media immediately crashed as fans tried to share what they had just witnessed. The implications of this attack go far beyond just one segment on one show. This represents a massive shift in the wrestling landscape. The fact that these 3 were able to enter the arena, execute this attack, and reveal themselves suggests that there are people in high places who sanctioned this invasion. The backstage politics alone are enough to fuel speculation for months. Who authorized this? Who knew it was coming? Why was the Bloodline conveniently scattered when their most powerful member needed backup? Fatu was stretchered out of the arena and the entire locker room emptied to check on him. The show had to go to commercial break while medical personnel worked on him. When they came back, you could see genuine concern on the faces of the announcers. This wasn't selling. This was real worry about someone they respected and cared about. The attack had crossed the line from entertainment into something that felt dangerously real. The wrestling community immediately went into investigation mode. Fans started pulling up old interviews, looking for hints that this was coming. Some found cryptic social media posts from weeks ago that now seemed to predict this exact moment. Others pointed to backstage reports of tension between certain wrestlers and management. The conspiracy theories multiplied by the hour. Was this a shoot? Was it a work that went too far? The lines between reality and performance had been completely blurred. The 3 attackers cut a promo after the assault that sent their message loud and clear. They claimed that Fatu had been running roughshod over the company for too long. They said that the Bloodline had become too comfortable, too dominant, and that it was time for a changing of the guard. Their words were delivered with such intensity and conviction that even skeptical fans started to believe this might be the start of something genuinely revolutionary in professional wrestling. Behind the scenes, the fallout was immediate and chaotic. Other wrestlers began choosing sides. Some supported the attackers, saying they had grown tired of the Bloodline's dominance. Others rallied behind Fatu, calling the attack cowardly and disrespectful. The locker room was divided, and that division was spilling out into public view. Veterans of the industry were being asked to comment, and their responses ranged from outrage to admiration for the boldness of the assault. The promoters found themselves in a difficult position. On one hand, the attack generated more buzz than anything they had done in months. Ratings would probably spike. Pay-per-view buys would likely increase. But on the other hand, they had to maintain some semblance of order and authority. If wrestlers thought they could just attack whoever they wanted without consequences, chaos would reign. The response from management would set the tone for how this storyline, if it even was a storyline, would proceed. Fatu's condition became the #1 topic across all wrestling media. Updates were scarce at first, which only fueled more speculation. Was he legitimately injured? Was this a way to write him off television for personal reasons? The lack of concrete information created a vacuum that rumors rushed to fill. Every supposed insider claimed to have the real story, but their accounts contradicted each other wildly. The truth was that nobody outside a very small circle knew what was really going on. When the first official update finally came through, it confirmed that Fatu had suffered injuries from the attack. The exact nature and severity were kept vague, but the statement said he would be evaluated over the coming days. That announcement sent the wrestling world into another tailspin. If Fatu was actually hurt, the attackers had achieved their goal of taking out the most dangerous weapon the Bloodline had. If he wasn't really hurt and this was all part of a larger plan, then everyone had just witnessed the most convincing work in recent memory. The Bloodline's response was surprisingly measured at first. Roman Reigns released a statement that was calm but carried an undercurrent of rage. He promised that there would be consequences and that nobody attacks his family without answering for it. Solo Sikoa was less diplomatic, cutting a promo where he vowed to hunt down each attacker and make them regret ever stepping foot in the company. Jimmy USO took to social media with a message that was equal parts concern for his cousin and fury at the cowards who jumped him. The attackers weren't backing down though. They appeared on the next episode of the show, walking through the front entrance like they owned the place. Security surrounded them, but nobody made a move to remove them. That's when it became clear that whatever was happening had approval from someone powerful. The attackers were given microphone time, and they used it to issue an open challenge to anyone from the Bloodline who thought they could get revenge. The gauntlet had been thrown down, and the entire industry was watching to see who would pick it up. Backstage interviews revealed that many wrestlers had known something was brewing, but nobody expected it to go down exactly like it did. Some admitted they had been approached to join the attackers but declined. Others said they wished they had been invited because they believed in the message. The division in the locker room was becoming impossible to ignore. This wasn't just about one attack anymore. This was about fundamental disagreements over the direction of the company and who should be leading it. Fan reaction was split down the middle. Some praised the attackers for bringing excitement and unpredictability back to the product. They argued that wrestling had become too safe, too predictable, and that this kind of chaos was exactly what the industry needed. Others were furious that someone like Fatu, who had worked his way up and earned respect, could be taken out like this. They saw it as disrespectful to the business and to everything Fatu represented. The financial implications started becoming clear within days. Merchandise sales for both Fatu and the attackers skyrocketed. The company was printing money from the controversy. Television ratings for the next show were the highest they had been in over a year. Social media engagement was through the roof. From a business perspective, the attack was a massive success regardless of whether it was planned or organic. That success only complicated the narrative further because it meant the company had financial incentive to let this play out in the most dramatic way possible. Other promotions started weighing in because the attackers had come from outside the company. Their former employers were either furious about contract tampering or secretly thrilled about the exposure their former talent was generating. The interpromotional drama added yet another layer to an already complex situation. Lawyers were probably having conversations behind the scenes about contracts and non-compete clauses. The legal ramifications could be significant if this wasn't all carefully orchestrated. Fatu finally broke his silence a week after the attack. His message was brief but powerful. He said that he had been knocked down but not knocked out. He promised that when he returned, there would be a reckoning. The three who attacked him would learn why he's called the Samoan werewolf. His words carried weight because everyone knew that when Fatu made a promise, he kept it. The anticipation for his return started building immediately. The wrestling world is now in a holding pattern, waiting to see what happens next. Will Fatu return for revenge? Will the Bloodline mount a coordinated response? Will the attackers strike again? Every possibility is on the table, and that uncertainty is keeping fans glued to their screens. This is what wrestling is supposed to be at its best: unpredictable and captivating. Whatever comes next is guaranteed to be explosive because too much has been set in motion to just fizzle out. The attack on Jacob Fatu changed everything, and the industry will never be quite the same. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a single update as this story continues to develop, because something tells me we've only seen the beginning of what promises to be an unforgettable chapter in wrestling history.